Poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson.
Welcome, my friend, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, this is your host, the founder of ChasingPokerGreatness.com, Brad Wilson. And today's guest on the show is former online MTT poker professional, Luciana Manolea. Many apologies, Luci, if you're listening, for butchering your last name. I'm going to put the blame squarely on my fat heathen tongue. Luci's poker journey spans over 10 years, where she's cashed for over $4.5 million in her combined live and online multi-table tournament poker career. Luci considers her poker origin story a fortunate accident while she was in college studying computer science. It was there that she realized the heart-pumping thrill of competition was in her blood, not ones and zeros, and she made the life-altering decision after getting her degree to go pro instead of sitting in a chair pumping out computer code all day. Even though her parents weren't initially thrilled about it, from there she was off to the races where she carved out an extremely successful poker career. In the conversation you're about to listen to, you're going to learn how insane multi-table poker tournament variants can really be in a story that makes this poker podcast host's blood run cold. Luci's new metaphorical mountain she's gearing up to climb. Hint, it involves the world of cryptocurrency. How she systematically goes about trying to overcome her cognitive biases so that she can be the best version of herself, and much, much more. So without any further ado, I bring to you fearsome Romanian crusher of souls, Luciana Manolea. Luciana, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hey. Good to hear you. Good to see you. I'm good.
Nice to see you as well. Welcome to the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. And as we do here in these parts, start out the show asking about your story. Could you start with, how old you are, how long you've been playing poker, and sort of how did you find the game of cards?
Of course, yeah. So I'm 32 and I'm playing for over 10 years now. I started during university. I was studying computer science. It was just kind of a fortunate accident that I found poker, really. And of course, as you know, back then, the games were kind of softer. I mean, they were. I think you agree with that.
I mean, this is always the case, though, right? Like, I think that as time goes on, the game just evolves. And, one of the smartest poker minds that I've ever talked to told me one time, and this was probably 15 years ago, that, the game will always be profitable. It's just deeper in the decision tree, right? And that's sort of what we see is when the early decisions in the tree are kind of automatic, the edge just comes from, the more complex spots that happen, on the turn or using some sort of different sizings and stuff like that.
Yeah, makes sense. So I just played play money for like 2 months, and then I just read on the internet just the basic rules. And
how did you find poker? What was the happy accident that put poker on your radar?
Just like I said, just a fortunate accident, really. I've just heard from multiple sources that there's people that actually make good money with that. So then I figured, why not try it?
Sure. Did you have an interest in cards early in your life? Games,
not
competition?
Really. No, not really. But to be honest, competition has to be in my blood for sure. I didn't find it earlier, Yeah. I was a bit too nerdy during high school. I was just reading a lot.
Well, that nerdiness serves you very well in the world of poker.
So then I started playing sit and goes. And I was fortunate that I kind of won from the beginning, because I had no money. I was a student, right? So if you run bad in the beginning as a student, probably you're not going to become a professional poker player, if you know what I mean. But for me, so I just started to win from the beginning, and started playing sit and goes. And after that, I transitioned to tournaments. I also got lucky in some free roll in the beginning, some party poker free roll. I recall I was very happy that I won $3,000. That was good money back then,
Yeah, that's a great bankroll boost when you are starting with zero. A 3K injection is pretty huge.
Yeah, talking about that, I recall that you were talking to some guest of yours that even if later on in your poker career you actually get to have some really big scores, somehow still the ones from the beginning, even smaller, they have a more powerful impact on you. It was kind of the same for me. And except that free roll, really, the score that had the most powerful impact on me was a 10K score, but also from my first year of playing in a $3 rebuy.
Tell me how that felt. Those first couple of scores where, you're in school, you're a student, you're not making a lot of money, you don't have a lot of money. Tell me how it felt to hit those scores.
Yeah, so the 10K was really life-changing. It really was. I'm curious to hear about you, about your first big wins in poker.
So in the beginning for me, I was around 20 years old and I had been working as a waiter at a restaurant and saving my money. And I remember my first sessions, I would call my friends and be like, yeah, I won like 600. Yeah, I won like 700. Yeah, I won the high hand bonus, which was like $500. And back then, my best day as an adult was a Valentine's Day where I made $200 in tips. Like that was the most money that I'd ever made in a day. So like going to poker and experiencing that kind of success early on was really big for me and it was exciting. And then my first big score was 200 on party poker. It was a nightly 200K guaranteed, 200 plus 15, I believe, buy-in. Back in those days, they had 200K guaranteed every single night, every single day of the week. And I just bought in and really, I hadn't played very many tournaments. I had played a fair amount of live cash at that time. And I just ran good. Like I just remember thinking like, well, I'm getting kind of short on chips now. It'd be nice to get a good hand. And then I would get kings and just double through. And it was like, oh, cool. Like, and then it kept going. And eventually I'm at the final table. And then, we're playing down and I got fourth and it was for 15K. Nice. And that was like you said, to me, it was life-changing. I remember going to meet my friend because I'd been playing poker like all night. Tournament ended. It was like 7 a.m. and I was pumped full of adrenaline. And him and I were like throwing the football in this hotel parking lot. Like, I just remember like being so pumped up that like, holy shit, I just scored for 15K. And yeah, that for those folks who are familiar with my story, I moved to Florida and then I moved back home shortly after I won the 15K because then it was like my bankroll was around 20,000. Of course, I knew everything about poker then. Like I was obviously a tournament pro. And it was like, yeah, like I'm going to do the online poker thing with my bankroll. And yeah, so I moved back home and then effectively played online poker till Black Friday in 2011.
Nice.
Yeah, it was, but again, like that excitement is maybe the peak excitement that I felt playing cards, where it was like, this changes things, right? Like this changes the trajectory of like, now I have hope that I can actually make this poker thing a career.
Exactly.
Yeah. So hopping back to you hit your 10K, you hit your 3K, you're in school for computer science. Did you graduate? Did you get your degree?
I did. I did. Even if I flirted with the idea of putting it off for 1 year, of course, my parents weren't happy to hear that. And I figured, you know what, even if I also want to play, but it's better if I just get over with this degree, even if I'm going to continue playing and not get a job. Because the thing with me back then, of course, when you're in your 20s, you do not know yourself very well. But I still somehow realized I do not like the idea of a 9-to-5 job. So that's why I explored this different path.
Yeah. And I think it's good too, to have your degree just in general, coming from somebody that I took a year off between high school and college, and that year has now lasted almost 20 years. And I've realized that without that redundancy, right? Like without a backup, you're kind of toast without poker, right? Like I feel like I'm very qualified to coach poker and teach poker and have a poker podcast and play poker.
Exactly.
But then in the real world, my qualifications kind of go down. I'm not really suited for very much out there.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but what's the real world? Because cards playing is a very long activity in history. So as long as you can play cards, you can eat.
Yeah,
really.
And I think that was, I'll never forget my friend telling my mom at one point, he just said Brad never has to have a job again for the rest of his life. And I just remember how that felt. It was like, holy shit, he's right. I don't. And that was just it's a feeling that I'll never forget. It was very, poker was my dream, and not having a boss was my dream. And to be able to realize that is, it's just such an amazing experience.
Yeah. And it's just like you said, I think the freedom that it gives you is just priceless, really.
Yeah, except that when you're young and an idiot, that freedom is like a double-edged sword where you have autonomy and you've got to be responsible for yourself, right? And that things can go downhill very quickly with young kids having money and all the free time in the world.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree. But it's the same with anything else. Like money can be used for good or for bad or anything really. So
absolutely. Yeah. You said your parents weren't too thrilled about the prospect of you playing poker professionally. When you graduated with your degree, did you entertain getting a job? Did you get a job?
Not at all. So I never had a job, basically, just because I was already winning a bit. And if I wanted to get a job back then, I mean, a job for an entry-level programmer probably was like $500. So you can imagine it's not that hard to grind.
$500.
Yeah.
What period of time?
Well, about 10 years ago.
No, I mean 500 a month, 500 a week.
Yeah, of course, a month. 500 a month.
Oh yeah. So, yeah, we do it. Good Lord, that's 6,000 a year. That's.
Yeah, exactly. So then I figured, it shouldn't be that hard to make close to that playing sit and goes, So, yeah.
So you just started grinding away. How did the beginning go? Were you successful from the get-go?
Yeah, pretty much, really. That's why I said that I was so lucky. Because, I just, I played double or nothing for a really long time. For quite a long time, actually. Mm-hmm. But also 18 men, I guess. Yeah, pretty much. I tried all sit and goes, really. But I played most double or nothing, and I was kind of a steady winner in those, low stakes in those, of course.
Double or nothing sit and goes, that's where is it like 10 person and then 5 people double their money?
Exactly, yeah. Gotcha. It's very, very basic stuff. So after that, just started to play tournaments and quit the sit and goes and kept playing tournaments for a very long time.
At what point did your parents come on board?
Well, I was already winning. So I was already sure I wasn't going to get a job, and I told them that, and that was it. They had to accept it.
Yeah, they have no choice. You're making your own decisions. That's the beauty of being an adult. You can kind of do what you want to do. So why the transition from sit and goes to MTTs and never going back to sit and goes?
Well, I'm going to get to that later on. It's not that I never going back to sit and goes.
Okay.
Well, no, I just got, so by mistake again, I found MTTs. And I just saw, all those guarantees. That $3 rebuy, I don't know, it was quite a high guarantee back then, So, all these promotions and satellites and stuff. So I think it's the natural path. If you start playing sitting goes, then you're going to find MTTs. So.
Yeah, you know how to play the final table. You're halfway there. You just got to get to the final table at that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
How did you tackle learning MTTs? Like being a computer scientist, how did you go about educating yourself in the sit and goes and the MTT worlds?
Okay, well, the sit and go work I just did myself using the programs. Back then it was Sit and Go Wizard, and after that ICMizer I used for a very long time, and I still have it. And for MTTs, I took a lot of coaching. I paid a lot of money to get coaching, really.
And what are we talking here? Like as far as like a monthly investment into coaching?
No, because I'm not that kind of person. I am not steady. So I invested, let's say in 1 year, I took a lot of coaching, or 2 years, I took a lot of coaching. But other than coaching, I still studied myself. I still had subscriptions for card runners and some platforms like that, And exactly in the beginning, I was also on the message boards. That's how I found people. That's how I found coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. The old 2+2.
Yeah. In Pocket Fives, I was more of a frequent poster on Pocket Fives.
Right. I actually made videos for card runners at some point 7 or 8 years ago before they went out of business. Yeah.
Awesome.
I really liked those guys, the people that ran Card Runners, and Card Runners was the first training site. For me, playing cash games was like Brian Townsend and Cole South, and those guys were like, it was like otherworldly seeing somebody perform at the levels that they were performing. It was very eye-opening for somebody that thought they were playing poker pretty well. And then watching those videos was like, holy shit, like this is next level. If you had to do it over again, knowing what you know now, would you have still taken the same path as it relates to your poker education?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't see what mistakes I've made with poker education. I've made mistakes with game selection and other kind of mistakes, but not exactly with education. Because I did pretty much everything with education. So I talked to people. I was in Skype channels. I watched videos. I did sims myself, and I took coaching. I mean, I pretty much did everything.
Yeah, you're fully immersed in the poker experience. And tell me about the game selection. What happened with the game selection?
Yeah, well, with the game selection, I have this problem that I like fast-paced tournaments. I mean, I always did, but now it is known that there's no money in them, really. But I played, my turbo ratio was really high, like 75% or so. And of course, what do you think it's going to happen when you play lots of turbos? The downswings will be bigger, really, because you definitely, if I played like 70% regular speed tournaments and 30% turbos, the downswings shouldn't have been that high. And I mean, so yeah, I had 2 really, really big downswings.
How big? What are we talking, like buy-ins?
Yeah. So I think you already heard before, because I'm sure I'm not the first MTT player that has a 1,000 buy-in downswing. I had 2 of those.
Holy shit. No, the MTT world is very foreign to me. So 1,000 buy-in downswing.
Yeah, it sucks. I tell you this.
I believe you. That is a freaking monster downswing. Holy crap. Like how do you keep yourself sane when you're going through that?
That's pretty much what you said. It was really, it wasn't easy to recover from those, but definitely game selection was a big problem, playing too many turbos, and of course playing also too high. So I had to also cut on turbos, but mostly cut on the stakes, just play lower.
How long does it take you to play 1,000 tournaments?
It depends. But
well, for you back then, like how many were you playing a month? We'll say
600, probably 700, something like that.
Gotcha.
Probably like 700. Yeah.
It's a lot of tournaments.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hours sitting there at your computer getting smashed in the face over and over.
Yeah, it is.
So how did you come out of that 1,000 buy-in downswing? What was sort of the turning point?
Well, I just kept powering through, not much. I just played lower. I reviewed more. Whenever I was in a downswing, I used to review more because, of course, I'm not that eager to sit at the tables to play because I feel like I'm losing all the time.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah, of course. It's the hot stove, right? Like you've burned your hand and now you're a little tentative of approaching the stove again.
Yeah. So then I would just study more during those. I would look through my poker tracker reports to see if my numbers look kind of okay, and random hand histories, take small breaks, but that's all you can do pretty much.
So you cut back on the turbos, you started playing more regulars, and then
playing lower.
Yeah. And then it just kind of naturally turned around over time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something. 1,000 buy-in downswing. That's crazy from a cash game perspective. Like that's so many buy-ins. It's so many buy-ins. What would you say is the most unexpected thing that's come from your poker journey?
I don't know if unexpected is the right word. I've met a lot of great people. I am very thankful for that during traveling and also on the internet. That's a blessing.
Still friends with those folks you were interacting with on Pocket Fives and 2+2?
Yeah, we still keep in message each other from time to time and stuff.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, and that's something that's it's been talked about many times on this podcast. But the relationships you make, the friendships that you make by being immersed in the poker world are one of the most valuable aspects of being a professional poker player.
Definitely.
What does your process look like today for regularly improving your game?
I'm not playing as much as I used to, actually. And that's in the last couple of years. I'm kind of transitioning. I'm making a career pivot, kind of, into trading.
What are you trading?
Well, cryptocurrency. But
the crypto. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you into that at all?
I mean, you can't not be into it when you're in the poker space
right?
In the USA. So, yeah, I know my fair share about blockchain technology and the crypto world.
That's good. Yeah, that's what I figured. Indeed, poker players are attracted to that also.
Well, in the US, we have no choice, right? We don't have Skrill or NetTeller to get money on and off poker platforms. We have to live with Bitcoin and, make wallets and figure out how to use Bitcoin and figure out is this legit? Is that legit? What's the best process? And then, for me, it was sort of this curiosity thing too. Like when Bitcoin was starting to become fairly big, but maybe 2014-ish, 2015, I was just very interested in the technology and seeing how it worked. And I really wanted to know if there was a utility, a long-term utility for these cryptocurrencies. And I went down the rabbit hole. I educated myself and learned as much as I could. But the trading aspect of it, for one reason or another, was never that appealing to me. It felt so gambly. I guess I couldn't figure out where the edge was, and then wasn't willing to invest the time and to figure out, how to realize that edge. But obviously, since that's what you're doing, let's have a conversation about crypto and trading crypto and why that resonates with you, especially as a transition from online poker.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, it's gambling.
That's for sure. It is gambling.
So I'm trading one form of gambling for another one. But let me tell you this, because, well, for you, first of all, I envy you that you can play cash games, because I really tried in my career to play cash games. But for some reason, I just can't do it. I just don't have the patience, the motivation. And just tournaments are just so heartbreaking. They really are.
Oh, yeah. They're like, I only play like one tournament every year or 2 years, and like get down to 35 people and then you bust. And it's like, why did I do that? Like, it's just, no matter what happens in any, like, I've never won one. So like, I've won them, but not for like what I consider to be like a significant chunk of change, like 50K plus. Like, I've never had a 50K plus tournament score. And yeah, it's just like, you get like fourth and it's like, so close. Like, it's like, right there. Like, I went through 1,500 people to get fourth. Like, it's almost like I've never been satisfied with a tournament result.
Yeah, well, tournaments are extremely satisfying, like you said, when you win, which is not very often, but it's the variance which you just cannot deny, because even if I'm not going to have any more $1,000 buy-in downswings, you're still going to have, as a MTT player, I don't know, 300, 400 buy-in downswings, you know?
Yeah.
And I just got older and I just don't want to do downswings anymore. Like, seriously, I don't want to do downswings anymore.
I believe you. That like 300 or 400 buy and tournaments too. Like, a good friend of mine, Mike Katz, who has played, he's plays live cash. I'm not even sure that he plays poker very much anymore, but he made some final tables where like first place is like $1 million up top, and he gets like a 70-30 for all the money and loses, and busts out like sixth and wins like whatever 100K or something like that, and the person who wins it becomes like a name in tournament poker because they win over $1 million. And it's just like, that is just so brutal to me. Like, that you're playing a sit and go for life-changing money, and if it's not your day, it's not your day, and there's just nothing that you can do about it. And like that to me is the sickness of multi-table tournaments. It's like you have to. I wonder how many folks were like more talented than the people who became names, but just like ran bad in really big spots multiple times. Like, that there's got to be so many folks like that.
Exactly. I listened to some episodes of yours. You're doing a great job, and you are talking about this thing with Chrissy. This exact thing that it's life changing if you run bad in those flips, like you mentioned, at those big final tables. And that's kind of the thing, because I just realized that, and I just don't like that anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And yeah, coming from cash games, like the biggest downswing I've ever had in my entire career is 23 buy-ins at cash.
Oh my God! But that's because you're an amazing player, for sure. It has to be that.
But like, I have friends that it's 25 or 30 or 35, but like cash, and we think we're running bad. Like, we think like when we go on like a 15 or 20 buy-in downswing, we're like, we're running like death. We can't do anything right. We can't get it together. 1,000 blows my mind. Like that, I can't even see it. It's so crazy.
But yeah, it's pretty much what you said. The truth is, with sit and goes, as long as, of course, you play one table sit and goes, because if you play 45 men or 180 men, those are more like small MTTs, right? Mm-hmm. But the single table ones, I'm confident that again, you shouldn't have big downswings in those. They should be comparable to the cash downswings. So sit and goes really feel more like a job, and also, I mean, not just feel more like a job, but they're more steady, so.
Jason, tell me about presence. Why did you think presence was the missing weapon in the arsenal of poker players?
So everyone's a mindset champion when they're running great, right? But when you're getting crushed day after day and you haven't booked a win in forever and the confidence just gone, and you're trying to do this thing that you read about in a book or someone told you about, being logical and being happy that the money went in good, when all you really want to do is cry and hit something at the same time, Like, how are you supposed to be logical in that moment? But that's the only moment when you really need it. What you need in that moment isn't mindset. You've already read all the mindset books and you already know what you're supposed to think and what you're supposed to do. What you actually need in that moment is presence. Presence is the ability to connect the dots between who you want to be and how you can actually be that person when you need it most.
So let's cut to the chase, right? Like, how do you do it? How do you stay more present when you're at the poker table?
Well, you get there by first deciding that you want more, right? That you want to grow your intuition, that you want to create more flow in your life, and that you want to reach your full potential as a player and as a person. And once you get there, you can start trying out some of the exercises and practices that I've put together. If it feels good, if you're enjoying it, you can keep going, right? And if you keep going long enough, eventually you'll find that you're just playing at really high levels, that you feel good with low stress, and you're enjoying your experience a lot more. Not just at the table, but away from it as well.
I personally would love to have as much presence as I possibly can in my day-to-day life. And if you, the listener, right now wants to add some presence to your game, visit pokerwithpresence.com, join Jason Su's email newsletter, and then schedule a free consult with the Master of Presence himself. One more time, that's pokerwithpresence.com. Let's go back to the trading, the crypto trading. How did you, so I can see like you're obviously forged by fire as it relates to downswings and the gambly aspect of it, right? Like dealing with those massive downswings can only make you a more resilient and stronger human being. And so the appeal of crypto and all of those swings, tell me about entering that world, what training you did, how you learned to trade crypto.
Okay. Well, actually, it was way more brutal than poker. But
that's what I was afraid of. That's why I never tried.
No, look, listen. I was entirely stupid. You would have done way better than me. And most other people would have done way better than me. And you got in way better than way before me, because I got in 2017. But in 2017, I was financially illiterate. I had zero knowledge about financial markets whatsoever. So what do these people do when they get in? They just buy and they never take profits, and they just lose afterwards. That's kind of the first cycle, right?
Yep.
And that was me. And I put way too much money in, and I lost it pretty much everything, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
after I put it in kind of dollar cost average through 2017. And at the top, I was with my mom at the PCA in the Bahamas. And my mom was telling me to take the initial investment out. And she was telling me that. I just did not listen. And at that time, I was 3.5x on my money. So 350% profits. But didn't take anything out. And that was it. Lost pretty much everything. And it took me a really long time to emotionally recover from that. Not that I will fully be recovered at any point, probably. But after that, after losing, I just started to get serious about trading education.
So instead of leaving the trading world, you decided to double down and go deeper. Yeah,
but the thing is, for after you put a lot of money in, and with almost throwing darts in the dark, you make 350% in 8 months. You kind of realize this might be like a better, easier life if you know actually what you're doing, which wasn't my case, of course. But that was my thought process, because if me throwing darts in the dark, knowing nothing, actually managed to make 350%.
Yeah. Imagine if you knew what was happening.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. And also just because I've been playing poker for so long, and I kind of knew I'm supposed to move on from that. For some people, it's just normal after many years to transition into something else. I believe that can be good in many, many ways, because they say that creativity comes from different fields, from people that, that are new in a field and stuff like that.
Yeah, the overlap from taking your experience and knowledge from one field and then applying it to another field in ways that maybe other folks haven't because they don't have your background and your base.
Exactly. And these two fields specifically seem correlated. It seems like my poker expertise would help me.
Absolutely. I see that. Like a lot of the skills are directly translatable.
Exactly, yeah.
So after losing most everything, you dive in. How did you go about educating yourself, like gaining, financial literacy of the market?
Well, so I toured 4 paid groups, and I was just reading in those channels every day, and then watched free stuff also on YouTube, and then make my own charts, and then stare at my own charts for a really long time. Yeah. And still try to get in trades. And that was pretty much it.
So you built your own models?
Well, I got more serious. I was serious during this whole time. It just, I needed more time than I expected to recover emotionally. Because even if I could spot good trades for a long time ago, actually executing them is something else. Because I still have PTSD from that huge loss, and that was holding me back. So pretty much like 10 months ago, I decided that I'm going to quit my limiting beliefs, that I am not a programmer, and I'm going to start to override my biases and override my PTSD by getting into automated trading.
And what led to that moment? What led to that breakthrough? Because that's a very conscious decision to go about things that way.
Yeah, exactly. So you know how it is with all these big decisions. It's not always. It's always lots of factors that contribute to it. So I listened to tons of podcasts, trading podcasts, very inspiring stuff. One guy that said profitable every month for 5 years. Only the title. When you hear that, I just realized, well, that's a way better life than tournament poker, because tournament poker, it was like for me break even for 1.5 years, and after 30 you don't want to live like that anymore.
Yeah, that's not fun. Break even for 1.5 years. Holy cow.
Yeah. So it happened to me, but it happened to some other fellows of mine. Well, not that I put that much volume in during that time, because I was also trading on the side. So basically, I was split between these two for the past couple of years.
So you decided to ditch your self-limiting beliefs. And by the way, there's a lot of connection here as it relates to poker and, seeing the trade, executing the trade, but having your emotions flare up and the PTSD and not executing it. I think it is something that I see as it relates to my students on a regular basis. Like, we train for things, and then when the situation happens in game, they can't make themselves click the right buttons. They just can't execute, right? And like forever, I ask myself, why is this happening? Why do some people execute just sort of automatically and other people just can't make themselves do it? And what I finally realized was it's just an emotional thing. Like they feel their emotions overwhelm them, and then they construct a narrative in their mind that makes what they know to be the right decision not look as appealing, and makes their emotions make a case for choosing an inferior decision because it makes them feel comfortable, right? And I think that's like, it's one of the biggest barriers to overcome as it relates to playing good, solid, winning poker is like, your overbet rip on the river may have gotten called the last 4 times, but that doesn't mean that they were bad bluffs. And we still have to do it time number 5, right? Like, we still have to, even though we're getting our heads beat in and none of them are working, you still have to keep doing it. And it's very easy for your emotions to kind of take the wheel and cause you to start passing up on some, good plus EV spots, which of course makes the downswing last longer. It makes your results poorer, and it's all this vicious cycle.
Yeah, but it's just so hard, really. When you're running bad, it's just so hard to still execute on those plus EV moves. Like
yes,
you said.
And the people that say like, leave your emotions to the side, like your emotions have no place in poker. Dude, we're born with emotions. We have no choice. We can't just it's like if you go through like a terrible divorce, right? And you like get devastated or depressed. You can't just say, oh, I don't want to be depressed. Let me just flip the switch and I'm going to feel happy and good now, right? Like, no, you feel your emotions and you can't get rid of them. You can't push them down. And that's just, the classic logical, analytical poker player mistake. Is like, yeah, we're not going to quantify the emotions. We're not going to look at them. Like, we just pretend like you're a robot when you play poker. And it's like, dude, nobody can do that. Like, because that's not how we're born. It's not our biology.
Yeah, definitely.
So you start executing, right? How did things go once you made that decision?
Well, no, it was, so basically that's the thing, because with automated trading, that's the advantage.
It does it itself. Yeah,
you do not execute it anymore because it places orders for you, it cancels orders for you. So you just program it to just do it accordingly.
Yeah, you had to press the button though. You had to turn it on.
well, pretty much, yeah. So I'm just gonna do that soon because I actually worked for over 9 months on the strategy itself. Because I wanted to be happy with what I have and to like it how it looks on the charts, and that's really tedious work.
I believe you.
But it's extremely exciting. Definitely as exciting as poker, really.
And you haven't flipped it on yet? The bot's not going yet?
No.
Gotcha. Well, I have to have you back on in a year or so to see what happened when you turned the lights on.
Yeah. I have big plans. I'm really optimistic about it. I think I have something good, really.
Awesome. I definitely want to know how that story plays out. And I guess now, since this is a poker podcast, we can go back to the poker aspect of the podcast. When you think about joy in your career playing cards, what's the first memory that comes to mind?
Well, it's the same that I already told you about. That's still my biggest. But after that, of course, naturally winning a live poker tournament. So yeah.
Tell me about that. The feeling of winning a live poker tournament. How did you feel? Were you nervous at the final table? Like, what were the thoughts going on in your mind?
That's actually quite a funny story, actually. So you are also talking about that with one of our guests about those. Even if myself, I don't necessarily believe in that. They're called kind of synchronicities or something like that. But just some interesting moments in time. So I was in Prague. I just arrived in Prague, and I was chatting with one of my friends, which was also one of my former coaches, actually my first coach. And I had an extremely early morning flight, and I barely got any sleep one night before. Barely got any sleep. And I was telling my friend, that during this Prague trip, I'm going to win some. I was young and stupid, really. So, I mean, literally young and stupid. Not that young, but stupid for sure. So,
young and stupid are like directly related to each other.
So I'm telling him, during this Prague trip, I'm going to win something. And he goes, Luci, let's just make a bet right now. How much do you want to bet? I bet half my bankroll that you're not winning anything during this Prague trip. I did not take the bet. However, in exact same night, it is the night that I won the first event that I played when I arrived in Prague.
Wow. Yeah, that's... Yeah. I wouldn't have taken the bet either. You would have had to give some pretty good odds to take down an event, but holy cow. Like that's... how excited was your first coach when you took on the tournament?
He was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I could have lost half my bankroll. That's insane, Luci. Congrats. Yeah, he was happy for me, of course.
I think like sometimes you put it out there in the universe, and when you're young and naive, like it's so weird how these things that are so far-fetched just have a way of happening. Like when you're just too dumb to know any better, you just haven't experienced any of the really bad stuff. So yeah, it's actually kind of unsurprising, even though it's a long shot, but like
Yes.
all the things that I did early in my poker career, like I didn't know my head from a hole in the ground, and how I made it out alive and with money is totally beyond my ability to logically understand, other than like I was young and somewhat fearless and arrogant, right? Like I had this belief in myself that was like not rooted in reality, but it still allowed me to be fearless and execute and do some things that I'm very proud of, and that powered me through that early stage of my career. And I think that like you kind of need that experience, the
really
fearlessness as a young kid.
You really do. Absolutely. It's pretty much what you described. Yeah.
If you experience 1,000 tournament downswing, like when you're first starting, you're never going to recover from that, right?
Exactly.
So the opposite question, and we've probably talked about this too, but the pain question, I have to imagine is going to be one of those 1,000 buy-in downswings. Maybe the crypto. Both of those would sound pretty painful.
The crypto was way worse. Like I told you, crypto way worse.
Tell me about that. Like, so 2017, what was the time period? Was that right at the crypto boom when Bitcoin shot up to like 20K for like a day and then went back down?
So basically, during 2017, Bitcoin was in a bull market. I mean, all the crypto market was in a bull market. And the top of Bitcoin was in December 2017. And pretty much after that, for 1 more month, for 1.5 more months, the altcoins were still going haywire.
Yeah, they were going nuts. I remember the hard fork in Bitcoin Cash was like worth over 2,400 at one point.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I do remember those days because I remember there were poker players who had like Bitcoin was at 15K and people were putting like 75% of their bankroll just in Bitcoin. And a lot of the live poker games were drying up because, it went down to around 3K. It hovered around that area, went to 5K. Like it was a long road to where we're at today. And where we're at today is pretty just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, but in the crypto world, everybody's joking with this thing that everybody asks, is it too late to get in Bitcoin? And the thing is, it's what you said, 40K is unbelievable. But what if 3 years from now, it's really 250K or something?
Then that's better. Then it's much harder to own a Bitcoin. At that point, I think that like the thing about crypto that has to happen is the UI and just being able to spend the Bitcoin, having it be like an actual currency. Because right now, it's not something that a lot of people use on a regular basis to actually buy things. It's more of like a storage type of unit. But yeah, I think like whenever the UI gets fixed, and also I think one of the major problems, at least from my perspective, is that it's hardcore, right? Like Bitcoin specifically is like you make a transaction, you fuck it up, you lose. you lose everything, right? Like so for the for my grandmother, who's almost 80 years old, like there's no chance. She has no insurance. Like she's liable for any mistake that she makes, liable for fraud or scams and all these things. I think that's something that like Bitcoin has to figure out before it reaches just the utility that I think will make it ultra valuable.
Yeah, more stuff than me about the technical stuff, and that it shows that you got in way earlier.
Yeah, how I got in is kind of funny. I did a cash out on Ignition, and it processed, and like I went to sleep, and it was like for 5K, and I woke up and checked I did the cash out, and then I went to sell it, but I fucked up the sale. and it was still in my wallet. So like I checked it the next day and I was like, holy shit, I didn't sell it. And it was worth like $5,600. And I was like, oh, wow. I made $600 while I was sleeping. That's insane. And then it was like the Chinese apps became like a really big deal at around that same time, where Poker Master kind of blew up, and just the changing of money from the people who were the portals to get into Poker Master to play those cash games and stuff. Like Bitcoin just became, high utility item back then. And that was sort of like, let's research, let's try to understand at least the technology of like what's happening to see if this thing is like sustainable or even, has a future in the world, because it's still, even today, is very, very, very early stages.
Absolutely. It is very early stages. But I do not suggest anyone to buy Bitcoin, but I suggest everyone to educate yourself on cryptocurrency, because a lot of smart people believe that this technology is here to stay.
Absolutely. So, the blockchain's amazing. Like the blockchain technology is absolutely amazing. And I think there are many, many, many utilities that the human race can benefit from using the blockchain technology. It's just, it's very early on. It's going to take a lot of time for things to, get mature and figure out exactly how all these things work. So let me ask you this question. There's a carbon copy of you, right? And she's 20 years old. She's wanting to get into poker today. She asks you for advice, and she's exactly like you. So if you tell her don't get into poker, she's not going to listen to you. She's gonna do it, right?
Oh my God.
What do you tell young Luci?
Play both sit and goes and tournaments. Do not only play tournaments for just as a job. That's not a good idea.
And you, even today, in today's day and age, you still believe that there's enough edge in sit and goes to make a living.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. That's great to hear, actually. A little bit surprising that after all this time, there's still the money to be made in the sit and goes. You have to
game select again. Game selection is very important. You have to look for software platforms. You have to kind of study one specific game and just play that where you're an expert, because the ICM stuff changes a lot from format to format. So
yeah, I think that's another thing that, like, if I were to sit myself down, would be to try many platforms and test out as many as you possibly can to kind of see how the games are across the board. Don't just get married to one platform. And also, another good reason for not getting married to one platform is you can have your money diversified in the case that one of them kind of disappears overnight. I think that, like, having all of your eggs in one poker platform basket, as it relates to the United States market specifically, is probably not the best of ideas.
Yes, I think we all have PTSD from Black Friday.
Yeah, I will never. I mean, that lasted. I didn't play online poker after Black Friday for at least 3 years. Like, it was straight live poker. Like, I didn't want to even look at the screen. Like, I was so traumatized by it. It was, I play poker. My dream was to play poker professionally and for a living. And I didn't realize I could get fired. Like, I didn't realize, like, it could just be taken away from me. And when I did realize that, I was probably a little bitter. I was probably a little like, I don't want to mess with this world anymore. And, just did the live thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Look, I totally get it. You feel like being a lone wolf in your poker journey has hamstrung your ability to realize your full potential. So I'm about to give you a golden opportunity to plug into a supportive tribe that will be the poker family you've always wished you had. How much money would you give for 1 hour of interactive group coaching led by myself, Coach Thomas, and occasionally past guests of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast? For now, and this will absolutely change at some point in the near future, the price of admission to the live Poker Power Hour is 100% free. All you've got to do to get your invite is head to chasingpokergreatness.com and hop on the VIP newsletter. No more excuses, no more procrastination. It's time to take action and put yourself in position to turn your poker dreams into reality. I hope to see that beautiful face of yours in just a couple of days. Okay, so what do you think is something that folks who are chasing their poker dream don't spend enough time thinking about?
Well, it depends, because everybody's poker dream is different, probably, right?
So maybe what your dream is.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, just like I said, the freedom that poker gives you is priceless. And if you're willing to just learn either cash games or sit and goes, you can just make a living with those at some point, depending on how much effort you put in and so on, right?
I think so. I mean, it's going to depend a lot on RTA and computing over the next 5 years as it relates to the viability of cash games for the long term, because I think that there's some potential for bad stuff as it relates to the cash game world, with bots and real-time assistance and all of that thing, especially as you play like the bigger stakes cash games. So I'm a little concerned about the future of cash game, like 100 big blind cash game over the long term. These platforms really need to start thinking outside the box and coming up with different formats that are harder for a bot to learn and execute in real time.
Well, then I suggest you guys go for sit and goes instead if you consider going for poker.
Go for the sit and goes. Live poker, though, I think live poker is always going to be great. Like live poker, there's always a space in the world for live cash game. Those games, like you can, playing 2-5, you ought to be able to make $40 to $50 an hour playing 2-5 live cash games. And, that's not a bad hourly rate.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. It's just for me, I'm very big on healthy lifestyle type of stuff. So therefore, that was another really big incentive for me to want to look elsewhere, because especially since I'm in Europe, playing tournaments on the European schedule, I went to bed at around 3-4 a.m. for many years. And after a while, you don't want to do that anymore.
No, you don't. I can say that for a decade, if I saw 8 a.m., it was because I hadn't gone to sleep. Like there was never a day where I woke up before 8 a.m. Like I know when I was playing home games and a lot of live poker, like I would sleep until 3 or 4 p.m. and wake up and play until, 9 or 10 in the morning. And that's not a life that I want to live. I would rather make less money living a more normal lifestyle than that.
Exactly. That's just very unhealthy to do, and you can only get away with it when you're in your 20s. But after that, it gets harder and harder.
Yeah, trust us. Trust me. 37 now, I think, and it does get harder and harder. What's some common poker advice you hear that you completely disagree with?
That you should be disciplined and kind of play the edges that are recommended, kind of tighter edges. I always advocated a more loose style.
Why more loose?
Well, since I'm barely playing poker anymore, I'm just gonna give you my biggest secret. So basically, I'm really big on poker tracker reports. I always was. I think that's a very useful for analysis and for study. So you can go really specific in those, and you can select for a specific position a hand cluster of hands, right? So let's say you select for cutoff hands like Queen 5 off, King Deuce off, 9-6 off, 9-5 off, 8-3 suited. Bad hands, hands that you're not supposed to open in the cutoff, right?
Well, not supposed to. I put in quotes because like everything is a model, right?
Yeah, basically that. So you select those, you select cutoff, and then you select your tournament format. Because what I say kind of applies to tournaments. I am very much aware that you really are supposed to play significantly tighter in cash games, because antes are a really big difference, big incentive to play more loose in tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so when you check for that report, if you're going to see that with, people that never opened those hands in those positions in the cutoff, in my cutoff example, they're not going to find anything. But since I did open them and I did select them, what I noticed was that I lose less than minus 13 BB per 100. Because if I always folded them, I would lose about minus 13 BB per 100, because it's 12% antes and the big blind and the small blind, something like that, yeah? Mm-hmm. So basically, if you manage to play some hands, some weak hands in these positions and lose less than than folding them, you're better off opening them, because that's what people have a hard time understanding, I think, that the value of folding in tournaments is not zero, is that minus 12 BB per 100.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the small blind, right? Like you fold the small blind 100 times out of 100, you're losing.
No, it's the antes.
Yeah, I'm saying in like the cash game setting, it's like the small blind. If you fold it over time, it's worth minus 50 BBs per 100,
exactly.
Right? Yeah. I think the antes aspect of it, which this is another bone I have to pick with the platforms in the USA, like it's been shown that in cash games on the apps, the antes are really, really good for the game because number one, they punish the nits. When you play fewer hands, you get naturally punished, and it's not as bad for the the fish or the recreational players because you're supposed to play more hands and they do that naturally. And like why a poker platform hasn't started running 6-max cash games with antes, I'll never know. But I love the format. And you're absolutely right. Like when you do fold, there is a cost when there is an ante, which dramatically changes the strategy.
Exactly.
So you realize like basically you're opening 8 trays suited. That's your that's the what you learned from all the database, the filters. You basically created a much looser model.
I'm not that much into models. I know that you're not into sims much either, though I did them. But like so I'm not into models. I'm a field player. So basically, there are situations where you're supposed to open 8-3 suited on the cutoff, but of course not always, right?
Well, so as I learn more about coaching people, right, I ask sort of fundamental questions to myself. Is like, as I've mentioned before, this is very embarrassing to say, but like for 12 or 13 years, I never even asked like why I have my pre-flop strategy, like why I do the things that I do. I just did them, right? And as I learn more and more, I just realized like, oh, I've basically, whether consciously or subconsciously, I've created a model for my cash game pre-flop strategy, and then I just execute it when I'm at the tables. And so like now I sort of frame things in that way. Like, okay, this is the model that I use. What does optimal model look like? And then compare the two. And then nowadays I'm really exploring my curiosity and kind of doing weird things that nobody really does to kind of see how they perform versus the more standard pre-flop models that folks use. And it's very interesting. Like I've learned some very, very interesting things. Like I played recently like 3,000 hands at 200 no limit where I never raised ever with any part of my range. I never 3-bet. I never opened. I limped. I called raises from the small blind. I did all the things that like you're supposed to not do. And I just wanted to learn, like, if performed well, is this a viable cash game strategy? And what was most interesting was that I ended up winning over those few 1,000 hands at 200 no limit. And what I realized was like players, when good players do things that other good players don't understand, they don't have a set strategy. When they don't have a set strategy, they just kind of wing it and do like what feels right. You know, it's like I limp under the gun with the same exact range that I would open with. And then the cutoff will ISO to like 6 big blinds with like king 10 off. Right. And it's like, that's interesting. Like if I were to open under the gun, the cutoff would never call with king 10 off. And yet here we are where I limp, and now they're putting in a lot of money, and we had the same exact ranges, right? And a bigger pot. And that was like just a really interesting experiment that I tried. And I think that like what I'm learning is that when players are going towards the dogmatic GTO model and they have a process for understanding lines and understanding all the different sizes, and when you do something that is not covered in their studying and their model, they get real confused because now they have to logic their way through it. They have to figure it out, right? That they're no longer just following a set path. And I think that anytime you can get players to not follow that set path, to get them off of where they're comfortable and where they know what's going on, there's room to capture a lot of EV. But the beauty of poker is like there's a spectrum of sizes, a spectrum of actions, and there's a lot of room to explore those sort of curiosities. And yeah, that's why I love the game. You know, I've been playing it my whole adult life for 16 years or 17 years now, and still experimenting from like the first decision in the tree and learning new things that I had never really considered before. And that's just really fun to me.
I gotta say, I really admire you for that, for specifically the limping experiment, because I recall your episode when you were talking about watching Kevin Rabichow limp from the bottom, and you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing here?
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Right. And stuff like that happened to me also. Of course, I mean, it happened to all of us. But specifically this limping thing, I am aware that really smart players experiment with it. I just couldn't get myself to do it. It's just, I'm just not comfortable doing it. And there's also, I'm on the dog polk camp side with that just, it's really hard to kind of balance a limping range, and it's just too easier to just be raising or folding.
That was why I never 3-bet. Like that was why I never opened. I had no aggressive pre-flop action, because I didn't want to balance my limp raises. Like I didn't want to balance anything. I just wanted to see like, if I never raise, what happens? A really interesting part of it is like, when you never open pre and you never 3-bet, like it's really hard for the money to get in. It's actually very rare for all of the money to get in because there's so many bets.
That's the problem, you see. I mean, there's many problems with that. And while you're a stellar player that you managed to win during your experiment, the thing is the same with my example with the opens in the cutoff. Extremely more likely that playing with raising, you would have one more.
Right, exactly. Would have performed better. And there were very, very obvious flaws as I was doing it that I learned. And it was basically like, can I take something away from this that I can add into my game that I think will perform better than opening, right? I think there were things that I could take away from it. But yeah, there were some clear bad constructions with never opening. I remember one hand specifically, a student of mine who's now a crusher. I was telling him about it, and he's like, I want to sweat. I want to watch you play. I want to see what happens. So we're on a Zoom call, and he's like watching, and I limped with Jack-8 suited from the small blind, and the big blind, it was 1-2. So I limped for $2, and he makes it like 14. And I was like, man, screw this guy. Like, I know he's doing this ultra wide. Like, it's so bluff heavy. Like, I'm just going to go away from it. Like this, I can't do it. I can't just call. And so I limp raised with the Jack-8, and like he snapped 4-bet me. Like it was like everything that I deserved. I deviated from my model because I just couldn't take it for one hand. And then he just snap punished me. And I was like, okay, that's what I deserve. But yeah, there were some clear spots where there were holes, but it was a fun experiment. And I think that like, you know, I Googled it too. I Googled like, has anybody ever just not raised preflop with any hand? And there was a thread on 2+2 that was probably 5 years old somebody suggested it, and it was just like 20 pages of everybody calling them an idiot. that was the full extent of the theory. But yeah, I think like just explore your curiosity, and you may be giving away some EV, but you're learning, right? And I think that like poker for me is fun when I'm learning. That's why I fell in love with the game, because it was such a fun thing to learn. And there's so many different options to make decisions and so many different places to grow. And when you stop growing and stop learning, I think that's when, the magic kind of ends for the game. That's when you start trying to find something else to spend your time doing.
Yeah, it is a really fun game. I expected that once in a while I get the tournament bug, and I wanna play some, because tournaments are really fun.
Yeah,
sure.
And I'm sure you will, right? Like you'll...
absolutely. But I did play recently for like 10 days during some series. I did play during series. I played during series pretty much.
Why wouldn't you? Right? Like you see your friends, you get to play and have fun.
Well, no, I meant online.
Oh,
series.
The online series.
Yeah. Because this year, no live series for.
Yeah, this year is an outlier year, I hope.
Yeah.
It's been a really, really odd year. But okay, so Luci, we'll get into the lightning round questions here, heading towards the end. If you could gift all poker players one book to read, doesn't have to be about poker, what book would it be?
So I wanna recommend a book that hasn't been recommended many, many times. I expect that Thinking in Fast and Low has been recommended many, many times. So then it's gonna be, even if I'm aware we're subject to the recency bias, and this is what I'm reading now, I swear it is an extremely smart book. It's called Scale by Geoffrey West. And it analyzes fractals and power law distributions from medicine dosage to lifespan of companies. It's really, really interesting book.
It sounds very math heavy, just from the description.
It is, but it's not that math heavy, like seriously.
It's consumable by...
Yeah, definitely. He's a physicist, but he definitely makes it so that everyone can read it pretty much.
Awesome. So Scale. Sounds like a great book. And speaking of your biases, besides Scale, what actions have you taken to kind of push through your human biases?
Well, we can't really totally overcome them, right?
Sure. Of course not.
For the trading thing, the solution is going to be with the automation, because this will take away the emotion part for me. And I don't know, just basic stuff like do meditation and breathing. Do not get into negotiation or conversation when you're mad. Just wait one more day. The basic stuff like that, I guess, right?
Yeah, and just having an awareness that you are mad, right? Like, I think that's sort of step one. Like most of us, go through the day and like we snap at somebody, we're irritated, and like we don't even realize how close to the edge we are until we do snap. And I think everybody can relate to that, right? Just doing things that are out of character and things that we regret. And I think meditation is huge to just gain an awareness that like, it's okay to feel angry. It's an emotion. Like, however, you don't have to, you don't have to destroy all your relationships in the world when you feel angry.
More on that. I'm curious. Did you manage to do that guided mushroom trip that you were talking about in one of your episodes?
The guided mushroom trip? No, I haven't done it yet. And where I'm at, it's not legal, and I haven't been able to travel all year. But I'm actively, I'm going to do it. I'm actively trying to figure out ways to get a hold of the mushrooms so that I can do it. But then I also have to, find the guide and do all the stuff the right way. And this pandemic complicates things for me specifically.
For all of us, for sure.
Yeah, but it's on the agenda. It's something that I'm going to do. And Acevedo talked about DMT too, and he sold DMT really hard to me. And now I want to try DMT as well.
Okay. Nice.
If you could wave a magic wand, change one thing about poker, what would it be?
I would just get rid of all the cheating, I guess. Right? With the bots and the stuff you mentioned before, in-game assistance.
You are the first person to say that, which is shocking to me, that you're the first person, because that's as soon as you said it, like, yeah, of course, this resonates with me 1000%. And I don't know, I've spent so much time trying to figure out security systems and measures and things that could be done. And it is so hard for somebody that is hell-bent on cheating. It is so hard to prevent them from doing it. Like without really bad penalties, jail time, really severe real world penalties. When we're in an unregulated market, especially like in the US, what are you going to do? Like, there's nothing you can do. Even if you can prove it, it's like at the discretion of the poker site. And then like, wow, who cares, right? Like, oh, somebody gets their balance confiscated. Like the punishment is not severe enough. And that's ultimately what I feel is necessary to cut down on a lot of the cheating. Well,
the thing is, actually what I had in mind, because I was kind of aware of what you said, it's extremely hard to figure out who's cheating and who's not. I actually think it's the sites that should take care and invest a lot in security and in technology to make sure that bots are not allowed and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, it's the sites. And that's the problem, is that there's some sites out there where bots have been a problem for a very long time. And it was very obvious to me that bots were a problem. I mean, back in 2005, when I was playing on Ultimate Bet, like there were bots. I played against a bot every day. They would win like the rake leaderboard. They were like a short stacking bot who played 12 to 16 tables a day for, 12 to 14 hours every single day. Like it's very, very obvious they were a bot. They even got caught one time because their bot was running while they were playing in a tournament that they won deceit ads through like the rake leaderboard. So like and the dude told, like, I remember I had a VIP host, his name is Victor for UB, and he told Victor that he taught his mom how to play in the same style, and his mom was at home playing the 12 to 16 tables while he was in the tournament. And like that's the problem, right? He's on top of the rake leaderboard, which means he's very monetarily profitable for Ultimate Bet. And it reduces their incentive to kick him off when he's generating so much rake on a month-to-month basis.
This indeed is the problem. Yeah,
it's an incentive thing, and like the amount of money they have to spend on security is a lot of money. So it's basically spending a lot of money to cost yourself a lot of money. And poker platforms, they don't care. It's just whatever to them. So it's that, to me, is priority number one for any site, is like need amazing security and need to take care of the players, like need to celebrate the players. I hate the way that things have gone in the poker world of, fuck the pros and everything. Like, to me, and I tweeted this the other day, that the pros are the most valuable resource of any site. And I 1000% believe that, because they represent the dream. They represent the possibility. People play poker, recreational players play so that they can get better because of the competitive aspect, so that they can become a winning player, so that they can make a little bit of money through their hobby. And you can't kick off winning players just because they're winning. Else, what's the incentive to become a winning player? You become a winning player and you get kicked off. That's not a good dream to drive people in. And platforms, something's changed over the last decade where they've lost sight of that. And it's just all about like daily monetary gain without any sort of thought as to the long-term perspective. And I hope it changes. I don't know that it will in the near future, but I think there's opportunity for it to change. But what are your thoughts on all that?
It's what you said. Sadly, everybody just chases short-term profits, And that's why they do not get out of their way to punish the cheaters and ban the bots. And it is what it is. That's why if you ask me if I had a magic wand, what I would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Get rid of it, right? Like,
yeah.
Going back to the UB scandal, right? Like, Ultimate Bet didn't uncover that. Ultimate Bet didn't expose it. 2+2 did, right? Like 2+2 players are the one who uncovered that scandal where, Russ Hamilton took like $60 or $70 million off of Ultimate Bet and just disappeared into the world. He's still playing in games somewhere in the United States, like to this day, never received any penalty for anything. And like UB didn't figure it out. The players did. And like, to me, that's so shameful. Like, can you imagine a professional sport where the players are responsible for discovering the cheating and the league doesn't care? I mean,
it's a bit sad.
Yeah, we can do better. Like I believe that we can do better as an industry. All right, my rant is over now. /rant. If you could put up a billboard, every poker player's got to drive past on the way to the casino. What does it say?
It's create action to get action.
There you go. Be aggressive. Get in there. Mix it up.
Right.
Play cards.
Right. You just sit there waiting for a hit, but sometimes you just got to make something happen, right?
Yeah. We don't get excited to go sit down at the poker table so that we can fold for 3 hours straight.
Yeah, exactly. No, but seriously, because I told you I played cash games for a few times. And once I was playing live, and in between two tournaments, I sat on the live 2-5 tables. For some reason, I never could get myself to play cash games or lose, either online nor live. And I fold for like 1.5 hours or something, or probably played one hand or something. And then I get queens, and I open, I get 3-bet, I 4-bet, and the guy says, you have kings or queens, and it gets away. I mean, it's annoying. It's not being the table. It is no fun, because when you do actually get a hand, people know you have a hand.
That's sort of like the knit thought, right? It's like, you just wait until I have it. I'm going to get you. Like, you keep raising me, I'm going to get you when I have it. And then they get it and they just fold, and they're like,
yeah,
that did not go the way that I imagined.
Exactly.
I have no doubt though that if you would have invested yourself fully into cash games, that you could have made it work. Like, cash games are not, they're tricky, but they're it's a learnable thing.
No, I believe that, but like, they're not as fun after you start by playing sit and goes and tournaments. They're just not as fun.
Yeah, but the $1,000 or the 1,000 buy-in downswing sound.
Yeah, those are
really not fun.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying, but I can't even imagine 1,000 buy-in multi-table downswing.
No, it's a way better life to be a cash game grinder for sure. It's a good life. You just take breaks whenever you want to. It's even way more flexible than sit and goes. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's always appealed to me. The tournament side I've seen it. I've like just imagined how it goes, and that's a life. That's a tough life.
Yeah, it is. Oh yeah, talking more about that tournament downswings. I was talking to some friend when I started coaching. I mean, I did coaching years back, but I started again last year. So I wanted to make sure that all my programs work okay. And I talked to a friend and I told him, can you watch me not log this thing to make sure that I do it right and stuff? And after that, I asked him, how are you doing? And how's it going? He says, well, I'm kind of break even this year on PokerStars. And I asked him, well, how many games you played? And I checked him. It was like 7K games, so kind of steady volume. And guy was making 14 BB per 100 during that year on PokerStars. Yeah, so winning 14 BB per 100, yet still losing. Still not making money during that year on PokerStars on like 7K games.
I don't understand the BB per 100 as it relates to tournament. That doesn't, for some reason, I don't understand that as a metric for how you're playing. I mean, cash game, it's very obvious, like 14 BB per 100. But like, as it relates to tournaments, how is it different than like ROI?
Okay, so BB per 100 is the same BB per 100 that you know. It says that's what it says. However, of course, during a tournament, that's an average, right? So basically, if you win way more in the first and mid stages and a bit less in the last stages, it's going to be the average of that. But even that, because I actually checked for my own stats, I checked to see if I actually make less during late stages. But no, I actually make a bit more, which suggests I do not meet up when I get down to 40 players. Winning 14 BB per 100 is huge, right? For the guy.
It's big.
But myself, I didn't have that, but I still had like 9 BB per 100, and I still break even for over 1 year, you know?
There's not a cash game player, I think, that runs at 9 BBs per 100 in cash and breaks even over a year.
Yeah. That's the problem, because in tournaments, it is possible, because you simply have to just get lots of 9th, 6th, 13th, 20th place. You just get lots of those instead of 1, 2, and 3 for a really long time. And this happens.
Yeah, you have to run well at the final table. Like, you have to run well when it matters the most. And if you don't, then life is tough.
Yeah.
Luci, do you have any projects you're working on right now that are near and dear to your heart besides your automated crypto training bot?
I guess professionally, yeah, that's it. And like I said, I'm really excited about it. I plan to start a small fund with friends, stuff like that. And more on a personal level, I'm gonna get more serious about. Well, not really. I'm just gonna take part in some running races in the mountains this year for the first time.
Have you ever ran? Like, do you enjoy running?
Well, not exactly, but like short distance. It's going to be short distance. I am going to the gym a lot. Well, I used to before the pandemics, and now I'm doing lots of yoga at home. I still went out for short runs. It's like 6 miles, 7 miles. So that's not long by any means. So
yeah, I think that's all about perspective. 6 or 7 miles. I think 6 or 7 miles, I would die, literally just be dead on the side of the road, I think.
No way.
Actually, like, running long distances has always been the thing that it's my Achilles heel. Like, I'm
no short distance. 6
or 7 miles is long to me. That is long.
No
that is
way.
A long distance. Like, I'm like 100-yard dash, built for quick movements. Long distance, I just fall apart.
Okay.
But that's great. Running through the mountains. I'm sure that'll be a good change of scenery from the past year and going through this pandemic. And wish you the best of luck with your fund. That's exciting. I'm excited for you, and certainly excited to see how it turns out. And final question for you on the show: where can the Chasing Poker Greatness audience find more about you on the World Wide Web?
It's just my name on Twitter and Facebook. Sadly, I'm not that active on Twitter. Well, not on Facebook, but on Twitter even less so. Yeah, I, in general, did not put much time into social media, as I'm sure you're very much aware. It takes quite a lot of time to take care of that stuff.
Yes, it doesn't happen overnight. It's
yeah.
Especially like starting a poker podcast and being like a cash game player who doesn't know anybody and has never heard of the tournament people. Like, literally, I like Sulfur Y and Matt Berkey, I respect a ton. And Berkey's coming back on the show for round 2 very soon. And I didn't know who Berkey was. I didn't know who anybody was because, like, I just grinded cash anonymously, didn't pay attention to poker Twitter, didn't go to message boards. And so I had no idea who anybody was. And I think that, like, as it relates to, raising money for your fund and stuff like this, your network is going to be a very valuable resource towards getting that going.
Well, yeah, but you say that, but you kind of booked amazing guests. I mean, you say you didn't have much connections, but you booked amazing guests. You did a great job.
But that's how it happens, right? Like, that's how you get the connections. You have Elliot Rowe on, and Elliot Rowe talks to Fedor, and then Fedor comes on, right?
Yeah.
And then people see that Fedor is on, and then Galfond comes on, and like once you have Galfond on, it's like, oh, all the people are like cool with coming on once they see Galfond. It builds over time, as you gain credibility and kind of respect, and you have a lot of episodes, I think, that I guess people listen and enjoy. But it's a work in progress. I've been at this for a year and a half and started from ground zero. And I would say that for anybody, it's possible, like you can do it. You just have to put in the work and do a lot of cold outreach, which, by the way, is not the most fun thing in the world, but it's a necessary evil.
You have to be ready to just be turned down and just keep on trying and message 10 more people, and somebody has to say yes at some point, and
eventually I'll feel sorry for you. Like,
oh man,
but
that's funny.
It's not like poker though, right? The downside is just a no.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost no downside to ask it.
Pretty much. You
just have to ask the right people, get it connected to the right crowd, and then they refer you to their friends, especially to have a good experience. And then that's how you get the bigger guests in a whatever niche you're in.
You've kind of built an amazing audience, and you put up great content only in 1.5 years.
Thank you, Luci.
And much work, I think.
Oh, nobody knows. Nobody knows the amount. It's a lot, but I really appreciate it, and I'm super happy that things have gone the way they are, and I wish you the best of luck with your automated bot. And you're obviously a brilliant human being, and I'm sure that when you turn the lights on, it's going to go well. And I'm sure you'll have things that don't go so well, but it's all part of the learning process, right?
It's a journey. It's going to be really exciting.
For sure. And take care, and we'll be happy to have you on, to learn more about what's going on, because I don't know about the listener. They'll have to, you'll have to give me feedback as it relates to like the crypto world, but it's exciting to me. Just that space. It's very new. It's very exciting. So
many thanks, Brad. I really enjoyed this conversation. Many thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Chasing Poker Greatness. If you have yet to subscribe to the show, please take a second to do so on Apple Podcasts or wherever your favorite place to listen to podcasts may be. For more content from me, Coach Brad, please visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/enhanceyouredge, and I'll see you next time.